Ferrari, no matter how much you want to say they're a shit show, they are competent now. They had a great week. They've had a great testing. It culminated with Charles Leclerc going 131.992, which is the fastest we've had. I believe it's the fastest. Maybe I think this is the fastest we've had all week. Um but the thing is, it was on C4 tires, and it was basically a glory run. But nevertheless, this is not the Ferrari of last year that had problems with low high right plank wear, that had problems with lifting and coasting and not having very good aerodynamics, and having a loose rear. Everything is in together, and I guess part of this is because they have the upside down wing, and they have the blown diffuser, which apparently, if you look at the way um, Leclerc was driving, even Hamilton, it's given them the most stability. They even have more stability than McLaren now. Going on corners now, they seem planted. They're down. I don't know if they have the most downforce, but they're planted and they have a good level of downforce, and it's very stable. So they've done very well. And on the long run pace, they had the fastest long run pace this week too. I think they were averaging like 136 point something. I'll get to that. What was it? I'll get to that. They were well, they were a little bit slower than Ferrari and Red Bull. They were like a 138.08, whereas McLaren was 137.6 and but nevertheless, they have the best combination of long pace. They're right a little bit behind McLaren and Red Bull, and one lap dominance. They had the fastest time. Now we know that Mercedes is probably going to be up there for one lap dominance. Today they didn't do so well. George Russell came in fourth with 133.197. Verstappen was 133.109. McLaren, Lando Norris was 132.8, and then Leclerc. So McLaren was 9 tenths of a second behind Leclerc. Red Bull was a second, 1.1 second, and Mercedes was 1.2. So it was clear that Ferrari was way faster than the other guys. But we have to take a note that today, all of these other guys, Norris, Verstappen, and Russell, were on heavy fuel loads. So I would say right now, if you want to talk about one lap pace, Ferrari and Mercedes are probably going to be the best for one lap pace going into Australia. But the thing is that we don't know how much. It's pretty certain that Russell's not coming forth because he's slow. He's sandbagging. So we know that when he turns those engine modes up, he's probably going to have the fastest lap. Antonelli did 132 something yesterday. So my prediction is that Mercedes has the best one lap pace. But here's the thing: Ferrari has demonstrated not only good one lap pace, which is an improvement from last year. They've demonstrated a lot more consistency and endurance, and yeah, endurance and long run pace than Mercedes so far, because it seems like Mercedes does have some reliability problems, and they've only been doing short bursts, like 7 to 10 lap bursts, whereas McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull have been doing long runs. And then when you want to talk about long runs, the two best teams that I think are Red Bull and McLaren, and I even think the Red Bull has the advantage. Yesterday, Verstappen in a race sim beat Piastri over a whole race, probably by 7 seconds, due mostly to better tire day than Piastri, because Piastri's car was matching him time for time, but it had a precipitous drop. So the word on the paddock is that Red Bull has the best endurance. They're able to have metronomic time, partly because of the car and the electrical system is efficient and the harvesting, but also because Verstappen knows how to balance drive in such a way as that he doesn't burn fuel and he doesn't burn his tires. So I'm getting the idea that if Red Bull is on is coming P2 or P3 in qualifying, there's a big chance they can win races due to their long pace. But right now, Ferrari is the team that we want to focus on because they're dangerous. Did you hear that Ferrari's been blowing people out on the starts? It seems like they're very good with the starts. I think they don't have their turbo is smaller than other teams, so that gives them a good takeoff. So Ferrari's dangerous in that they got good starts. They've got a good one lap pace. And even if they don't have the best long race pace, they're still top four in best long race. So they have a versatile car. And that means that in the hands of Leclerc, this might actually be a year that Leclerc may win a championship. I don't believe he will, but this is his best chance because he has a good car. And I think Lewis Hamilton will win some races. But what we want to look at today, to continue focusing on Mercedes, because Mercedes hasn't done long runs, and a lot of people are wondering if they have some reliability problems, because I know today they had some problems. I'm not sure exactly what was wrong with their car, but they weren't able to do full runs all day. So we're gonna have to keep our eyes open, because I think that Mercedes is sandbagging their engine mode. They're sandbagging their one lap pace. I have a feeling that they may not be sandbagging their long pace. I think they're doing one lap and stuff because the car might have some reliability problems. And I don't see how their raw power for one lap is going to equate to long race pace because race pace is more about being able to harvest and balance energy. And I just don't have a, I find it hard that they could sandbag for the distribution of energy and um, harvesting because we've seen on their cars, their lights are clicking before they get to the end of the straights because of the the battery's running out of power. If they're doing that on purpose, that means these guys are really skillful sandbaggers. What do you think?
Yes, I quite agree with you. I mean, Leclerc did very well. He was the only driver that was able to enter the 131 second so to speak barrier today.
Yeah,
And I think Ferrari seemed to have found an immediate sweet spot with this 2026 power unit, you know.
yeah,
And if you look at it, I mean, it's a massive 0.87 seconds over Lando Norris. And in modern F1, that is really remarkable. Although we are not sure, like I said, of the kind of load of fuel that this
Oh yeah, well hold
engine,
on, I hate to jump in front of you. They were on a light load,
it
okay,
was a light
and
load.
and they
So,
were on C4 tires.
and it was
McLaren
safe
was
for
on
tire.
C3, and I
So,
still think that that 8 tenths of a second, maybe you can take even 5 tenths off. They still probably have a 3 tenths of a second
yeah. And
lead
I think
on.
even Gasly that was on C5 couldn't match the pace. So it
Oh
showed,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Gasly did the C5. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So it shows that Ferrari is extracting, maximum grip from the softer range without any overheating issues. It shows to an
Yeah,
extent also that the car looks reliable and there's a bit of confidence. I mean, the
yeah,
glory run on the final day can usually tell us that, I mean, they have their data. Their data is well, analyzed, and most of what they have been testing in simulation, they are getting the desired outcomes in real life
yeah,
and on the track. So it's early days, but I think it was a good performance for
yeah.
for Leclerc and Ferrari today.
And I
And
watched
said
Leclerc.
they're launching very quickly too from the
Yeah, I
start.
watched Leclerc. The car is very pointy, so it still
Uh-huh.
goes like a fish,
So
the front and the tail.
I think that's why they're
But
launching very quickly
yeah,
from the off.
so in the corners, their car still has I wouldn't call it instability, but it still has issues with oversteer and understeer a lot.
Understand.
Okay, and
Yeah.
also Leclerc pushes the car to the limit. So even when Leclerc had his fastest times, he was hanging on. And what I mean by hanging on is that he was on the limit of adhesion, and several times he had to back out of laps. But when he fight, so what I'm trying to say is that he had to push it very hard. But what I noticed is that going through the corners, the car was planted because you can have stability and still have unbalance. So the car does have some unbalance, but I think that might be just the way that Leclerc drives, or they made the car a little bit pointy. But the main thing is that they added that they have a diffuser modification, a blown diffuser, and they also have the upside down wing. That wing is planting them on the corners, and it's also able to go the other way on the straights to give them. So they basically have something kind of like a flexi wing, which is giving them efficiency, not efficiency, but is giving them downforce and stability on the corners. The only thing I'm worried about is that Ferrari is definitely top two or top three fastest cars, but I think that Mercedes and Red Bull are probably more have more stability. Arrows have a little not more stability, but probably have a little bit more balance. And I think that McLaren may have as much balance, more balance than everybody, and more stability, but they're just not as fast. So I think right now the two fastest cars right now are Mercedes and Ferrari for one lap pace and performance. And I think Red Bull is probably behind them by a little bit, but Red Bull has so much of more of an advantage for race pace. So I think Red Bull is actually the McLaren of last year. McLaren wasn't known as a one lap wonder. It was known as the car that had good tire drag and could beat you. And we know that in qualifying, even if what's his name Verstappen's car is not as fast over one lap than Ferrari and them, they're going to bring upgrades, and he's going to slice that car up to get to do well in qualifying and find a balance. Because if you notice, last year at the end of the year, he was winning races without having to be too pointy anymore because the car was stable and had aerodynamics. So I have a feeling that Red Bull's going to be bringing a lot of upgrades, which will address their issues over one lap performance and give them even more advantage over tire deck and everything. But for now, I will say that the fastest cars right now, the cars that should be the favorite in Australia, are the Ferrari and the Mercedes. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And another important thing that I have noticed here is that, I mean, entry into turns is really very important for the
Yeah,
whole, the whole race space. Because I mean,
Yeah,
if you look at the way the engine is designed now, you mentioned something about Mercedes not being able to depend on raw power and
hmm,
having to depend on their ability to harvest, energy from the electrical side. I mean, if you look
yeah,
at turn 12 here, turn 12 was a very significant portion of the track. If you look at turn 12 here, a lot of them, it tested a lot of them. And if you're able to enter this kind of turn with high speed and still come out with a lot of energy to continue the race, I think it means your car is aerodynamically stable and reliable.
yeah,
And this is where I think, you're going to have to plan your race around the turns, because no matter
yeah.
what advantage you have, when you get to the turns, you are going to have to harvest energy and continue the race with the same pace. So I think the turns are going to be very
So,
significant.
so, so here's the thing, and this is why I think Red Bull is still the benchmark. They've done studies. Entering the corners, Verstappen has more speed than anybody entering it, okay? But here's the thing, once he enters the corners, he downshifts and he's slower through the corners than Ferrari and Mercedes. He's slower through the corners. But that's why he now has a higher top speed on the straight, because while he's slower through the corners, he's been charging
The
the
battery,
battery
the
to give
battery.
him higher top speed. So, but what you notice then is that Mercedes and Ferrari are faster through the corners and have faster exit speed. But by the time they get halfway through the straight, they've lost everything. So once again, what Verstappen is and Red Bull have done is that they go into the corner with higher speed and they sacrifice some speed through the corners. But here's the thing: if they're going fast on the straight, you're behind them. Then when you get on the corners, you can't pass them. So by the time you have higher exit speed, it doesn't matter because now Verstappen has more speed on the straights. So what Verstappen is doing is racecraft. You get my point? And you'll see them closing in on him, gaining time on the corners, but then they'll be losing it on the straights. You get my point? So speed through the corners is not going to be as important this year because of that harvesting thing. And here's another thing: what Verstappen does is that when he has a higher speed going into corner 12, even now when he downshifts, the momentum from him going into the corner fast also adds as energy that's charging the battery to harvest as, at the same time where he downshifts to rev. You get my point? So he's like a kite. He's flying. So his momentum is carrying through. And that's what he does all the time, even before this harvesting. He carries a lot of speed into the corners. And then when he gets into the corners, especially tight, slow corners, when you get into tight, slow corners, you have to be careful. You don't want to have too much speed through it. You let yourself glide and save your momentum for the straights. Verstappen has been doing that same thing that harvesting does now. He actually has been harvesting years before
Yeah,
because there's a lot of momentum that he's carrying, and with the tires on the corners, you don't want to wear out your tires. So Verstappen will be going slower on the corners, but he's also going to be wearing his tires out less. So that's why I still believe that Red Bull is the benchmark, not just because I'm a Red Bull fan. And I think that McLaren might do a lot of what Red Bull is doing with preservation of energy through corners. But the problem is, I don't think McLaren has enough raw speed. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Max Verstappen did really well here because he was able to match that pace. I mean, Ferrari's pace exactly,
Oh,
but with higher speeds at the end of the straights. With higher speeds at the end of the straights. Now, this suggests, like you said at the beginning of the show, that Red Bull may be hiding some things or hasn't yet used their full engine power. In spite
yeah,
of the fact that Ferrari was really very fast, you could see that Max Verstappen wasn't far off, and his speed at the end of straights was really very fast. Generally speaking, all the cars are slower this year compared to 2025,
yeah,
because of battery saving for the entire lap. So I think where Verstappen is going to try there is his throttling ability, lifting and coasting. That will ensure that when you need to save battery, you can save battery. And when you need to put your foot on the throttle and hit it on the straight, you can hit it. So it's that balance that brings
yeah.
in
So,
the
so here's the
brilliance
thing.
of the
So today,
racetrack.
I actually was wrong. Today, the fastest race pace was McLaren. Oscar Piastri had 137.6. Verstappen had 137.9. But here's what they said: Verstappen was extremely close to McLaren and had superior battery management. So it means that even though McLaren was getting a little bit faster, he was managing his battery better.
Better.
And I can promise you,
Yes.
he was managing. And then third was Ferrari. Ferrari was on 138.0. So Ferrari was about 4 tenths of a second slower than Piastri, Hamilton did the long run. Strong late stint pins, though tire degradation was slightly higher. So tire deg is what's going to be what hurts Ferrari. You get my point. So
Sure.
this is why I said overall long pace, and then we don't know about Antonelli and Co because their times are slower for a long pace. But we know, like you said, it's sandbagging. But we're already beginning to see patterns. So let's move on. So we want to talk about the mid-pack teams. Pierre Gasly had fifth fastest today in 133.4. That's a very fast time, even though he was on C5. You know what that means? He's going to have super tire deg. But him running 133, and then right behind him was Oliver Bierman, who was less than a tenth of a second behind him with 133.48. He was 0.42. Um, so this sets the pace. Oliver Bierman was on C4. So this sets, and the reason Alpine and Haas are on C4 is because they can't keep up with McLaren and Red Bull, these guys, if they use their medium tires. They have to use their soft tires to even stay close to these guys. Those guys can do their medium tires. But it seems like Alpine and Haas are going to be fighting for, funny enough, for fifth place this year because there's no Aston Martin, there's no Williams. So Alpine and Haas will be fighting. And strangely enough, seventh place will most likely be Audi. Bortoleto had 133.75. So I think this is a good story that we're going to see. Oh, and then let's not forget Racing Bulls too. With
Mm.
what's his name?
Um,
Hadja. So
yeah.
so I have a feeling that Alpine and Haas are going to fight for fifth and sixth, and
Is
then
is
Audi
that
and
Lamblad
Audi.
guy? Is that Lamblad guy going to be racing for Racing Bulls? Going to be driving
Yeah,
for
he's
Racing?
17 years old. 17 years old. Racing Bulls is team two for
Okay.
with Liam Lawson. Yeah, that's
Okay.
team two for Red Bull. He's 17 years old. So right now it looks like Haas and Audi. Alpine and Haas will fight for fifth and sixth, and and Audi and Racing Bulls will fight for seventh and eighth. Then at the bottom of the list is Sauber, Aston Martin, and Cadillac. Those guys are in another world. But let's talk a little bit about Lindblad. Lindblad was fantastic. Lindblad did a long run, 146 laps today, and I think he was averaging 137. It's fantastic for a 17-year-old kid. Okay, now we're gonna end with this: the shit show at Aston Martin. Aston Martin did I don't know how did if they did 5 laps, they might as well have done 20. Even if they did 40, I think they did something like 20 laps today. No, I don't even know if they ran today. But yesterday their gearbox broke, and today um, Honda made a statement that they can't go more than 10 laps or so because there's a problem in which the engine cracks. That's unbelievable for this level of Formula One. No, the battery cracks. It says that they can't drive because the power of the engine is cracking the batteries. I follow, but you're an engineer. Is that even possible at this level?
No, 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 no. You can't expect this kind of bottle job at this level. And if you look at, it's very worrying that this is happening because Adrian Newey seems to get the best design when there's a regulation change, but not
Yeah.
so this time around. They don't seem to be getting it at all this time. I don't see this car going more than 20 or 30 laps
No,
without
no.
an
And
issue.
here's the problem.
They're
I'm
having
going to give it.
reliability issues all over.
Adrian would say that the problem is the engine. So let's talk about Honda. How the hell do you have a car that you say you don't know even know what the problem is, and that if you go 20 laps, your battery is going to be broken while driving. So they're saying that they can't do anything from now until Australia except fix the problem. So they're not going to work on aero. They're not going to work on anything. Just trying to see if they have something so that their battery can last the whole race. This is a catastrophe. What are your thoughts?
It is, I agree with you. And at this stage, today's the final day of testing. Everybody's basically ready for Australia to be, recording this kind of battery and engine failures is really very embarrassing. And the biggest issue now, as it is the Honda power unit. On Thursday, I think it was Fernando Alonso that was forced to stop on the track due to a
Yeah,
major
it sounded like it
battery,
was his gearbox.
yeah,
No, no, yeah,
battery related issue. So
yeah,
this wasn't a quick fix. Honda had to run simulations all the way. I think they went back to their department of whatever it was in Japan, just to
yeah.
figure out if the car was safe to drive today. And that's the most important. If a car is not safe to drive, how then do you put it on the track in Australia and say
And can I say something? Even
yeah,
though Adrian Newey is not responsible for the engines, this is why you have a technical director. Because if the technical director is going to ask the right questions, why is this happening?
now to
And
keep
why
the
didn't we?
audacity of your design in check?
So what it means then is that Adrian Newey failed as a team principal, and the reason I say so is because he didn't put together a system of safeguards in which these things were identified. He was busy worrying on his creating the Batmobile, but he didn't
Yes.
have the team. He didn't have the team operating in which somebody and it makes sense in which somebody could have seen this alarm two
Yeah.
months ago and say, hey, this is a problem. Then
Of
you wait till
course.
now to find out. It means the team's operations are in a shambles. And it makes sense because Adrian Newey demoted Andy Cowell, who's an engine guy. He
Yeah.
demoted Andy Cowell and made it so that Andy Cowell had no say in the day-to-day technical issues of the car. And meanwhile, he was working on the contours of the Batmobile. So it means that he didn't coordinate the team in such a way that this problem could have been identified earlier, which is why I say Adrian Newey is not supposed to be a team principal. He's supposed to be an
Yes.
aerodynamist.
But my question is, how do you then solve this problem, considering the fact that you can't then now bring in a mechanical reliability expert that is going to work under Newey? You would have to have a way of criticizing Newey's
No,
designs.
Honda is going to have to spend hundreds of millions to identify. You know, if there's a problem, push money into it. They're going to have to bring in experts to do an
To
analysis
figure
because there are
it
people who
out.
can probably do it. Because I refuse to believe that in this day and age you can't bring in what they call forensics. You can't bring in
Yes, sure.
experts, but it's going to cost them a lot of money.
Sure,
And I don't know if
sure,
they can be allowed to do it because of
sure,
cost cap. You get my
sure,
point.
sure.
But I don't know how this
They
happened.
spent a lot already. They spent a lot already.
Yeah, and I don't know. They may not even be able, like you said, fix the problem because maybe this is a problem that's so unique that you're gonna it's gonna take time, maybe 2 months to figure out what it is. And this is going to be a big problem if Aston Martin is not able to finish a race in Australia. I don't know if that team
It
can ever
is.
recover from that.
It
As
is.
far as their reputation will be blown. In
It will.
fact, they may have to get out of F1.
It will. It
I'm
will.
serious.
It certainly
Let
will.
me why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because money is not everything.
No,
Richie
it's not.
Rich,
It's not.
Lawrence Stroll, Lawrence Stroll gave him money, gave him shares, and then Lawrence Stroll said, "Verstappen, please come." Lawrence Stroll offered Verstappen $500 million, $500 million. So you
Yeah.
offered Verstappen $500 million to come and drive on a car that can't do 6 laps.
Can you imagine? He even gave Adrian Newey some shares in the company. It was
Yeah.
a really lucrative deal. It was a really lucrative
Well,
deal.
you know what? Basically, he threw away about $1 billion. And let me tell you where all of this starts. All of this starts with when you're the owner of a team and your son doesn't deserve a seat on the team and you keep him there. So he was doing favoritism with son. So that's a sign of unprofessionalism. And you know what
Yeah,
they say that if you look at the king, if you look at the leader of a team or the leader of a company, if they're not disciplined, the whole company will be a shambles.
sure, absolutely.
What I'm saying is that Lawrence Stroll, he has money, but he hasn't been professional. He kept his son on his team too long just because it's his son.
Sure,
Threw
sure.
money around. He hired Andy Cowell. Then when Adrian Newey was around, he now basically forced Andy Cowell out of the company to bring in Newey. So what I'm trying to say is that he doesn't have any consistency himself. I'm talking about Lawrence Stroll.
Sure, sure, sure.
If it had been me, maybe I brought in Andy Cowell and I see Adrian Newey is available. You know what I'll do? I'll be like, oh, it's a pity. I wish I had known. I would have taken Adrian Newey. But now that I've already invested in Andy Cowell, let me stick with him. You know, or if I bring Adrian Newey in, let me bring him in, but Andy Cowell is still the CEO. But what he did was he allowed Adrian Newey to take too much power because he gave him shares and he
Mm.
also gave him 100% control of the team operations. That was a big mistake. You get my point?
Yeah, I
Because once you
understand.
get shares in, to me, don't you think there's a? Do you think, like, for example, let's look at football. Do you think it would be fair, right? Do you think it would be proper procedure to give uh Arteta shares in Arsenal while he's also the manager? Does that make sense?
It becomes you can't fire. It means you can't fire him because
Yeah, and also there's a conflict of interest because
yeah,
his job is to
yeah,
do tactical stuff.
of course,
But now that he's also a CEO, and so he may even be more motivated to make money than to help the team win.
of
You
course,
can't have one of your employees
of
be a
course,
shareholder
of
in
course.
this type of sport. Maybe
No, no,
like in a
no,
factory, like
no.
let's say there's a factory.
It's not a good model. It's not a
No,
good
you
model.
once you become a shareholder, that means you can no longer be a, a lower level employee like the
Sure.
same thing.
I
Maybe
mean, aerodynamics is good, but with this regulation change, there isn't supposed to be too much emphasis on that side as
no, there's the
against
battery.
reliability. Yes, there has to be a
And
balance.
here's the thing, but here's the thing. Once, so it's like a pyramid. You have the first foundation. So now, year one is the engine and the reliability. Then year two, year three, four, you start to build towards aerodynamics and other things. But in this era, the first thing you have to nail is the battery and the power unit. That's the first thing you have to do
Of course,
before you
that's
worry
the
about
most important thing now. That's the
in
most
this era.
important thing now.
All right, let's get out of here. This is a good Friday. We don't just much. We just take us out. Let's start. Take us out.
Yeah, it's been another brilliant show. We've been discussing Ferrari and Charles Leclerc's brilliant performance in today's final testing, and as well as McLaren and Red Bull's performance as well. We don't know what's happening with Aston Villa. They've become a shit show. Sorry, Aston
Aston Villa.
Martin. They've become a shit show now. They've become a shit show now.
Aston Villa.
They don't even have a car. I think we can say they don't.
Ateta Villa.
I think we can say they don't even have a car right now to
No,
compete.
they don't have a car. You know what they have? They have a body without a car. Yeah. Like
Just
those
the
cars in
chassis.
Nigeria where the children sit inside the chassis and they pedal it.
Yeah.
That's what they have. All right, check
Go-kart,
us out.
like a go-kart. Okay,
Yeah,
so
go kart.
we'll be back again for some more Formula One show as we build up to the Australia Grand Prix. From Mustafa and myself, it's bye for now.
Nice one. We'll probably